Broadcasting live from beautiful Middle Tennessee. It's the Mr. Big Show. And here he is, Mr. Big.
今、新しい伝説が生まれようとしている。Enix。
The great granddaddy of them all, Dragon Quest, with artwork by famed mangaka Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump fame. Every Jrpg we know sprang from this little black cartridge made for the Famicom in 1986.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Mr. Big Show. Like the theme says, I am your host, Mr. Big. In my previous episode, I began a discussion about the Dragon Quest franchise, and at the end I recommended the Nintendo Switch version, while I only showed footage of the NES version. Realizing this error, I asked myself one question. Yo, Goober, where's the Switch? And to rectify this, I'm going to devote this episode as to why the Switch version is the best and the easiest way to play Dragon Quest 1, and incidentally 2 and 3. The first topic I'm going to cover is the graphical fidelity of the game. Note, the Nintendo Switch version is, in actuality, a port of a port, meaning this is the version of Dragon Quest that came out on iPhone and Android devices worldwide in 2014. This title uses the Super Famicom port of Dragon Quest as a backbone. The overworld, the cities, and dungeons all have the same 16-bit sprite work, but the music and character models have been given an overhaul, and the monsters were all completely redrawn, and battles now have redrawn background images to better convey what kind of terrain you're supposed to be fighting in. Honestly, I love 16-bit graphics, and all of the SNES assets in this title are gorgeous. However, it was decided to use a softer, more generic-looking sprite for the hero, and to be honest, it stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, would you rather have this or this? And it seems to be one of the general complaints across the board from people playing this version of Dragon Quest. Aside from this, admittedly minor blemish, playing in handheld or tabletop mode diminishes the contrast of the sprite work. Dragon Quest on Nintendo Switch is still very aesthetically pleasing overall. Magic is a big part of Dragon Quest, and this version ups the visual fidelity of the hero's magic-based attacks. Due to the graphical limitations of the NES, Magic in Dragon Quest 1 simply made the screen flash and did its desired effect, i.e. hurting the enemy or healing you mostly. Now these spells have actual animation to bring Dragon Quest more in line with later games in the genre. Music. The Dragon Quest series is renowned for its beautiful scores, and while more basic than other entries in the series, Dragon Quest 1 still sounds amazing. The late Koichi Sugiyama was able to craft a musical score that, while simple by today's standards, fit the atmosphere and scope of the game, and gave us tracks still being used in Dragon Quest games to this day. By and large, Dragon Quest as a series is known for its soundtracks. Using the rudimentary tools of the time, Sugiyama was able to craft a score that made you feel like you were on a grand adventure, while simultaneously invoking the feelings of loneliness, befitting a single warrior on a mission. By the time Dragon Quest IV was released, a scant 4 years later, Sugiyama had honed his ability to manipulate the limited sound capabilities of the Famicom into beautiful musical scores. A channel I have found recently and absolutely love what they do is, and as I don't speak French, I'm probably going to butcher this. I have used Google Translate to try to help pronounce it correctly. L'Orchestre de Jeux Vidéo. There will be a link in the description. They've covered everything from Wind Waker to Octopath, and if you like symphonic video game music, you should go give their channel a listen. They're absolutely amazing. Dragon Quest I uses an Old English type of translation to give it a more European atmosphere. There are lots of thee and thous throughout the script, but that is strictly in the Western versions of the game. It was done to give the game even more of a European feel, hoping that it would sell better. However, I think it may have actually proved the opposite, as in my opinion, it gave it an archaic feel, and for a long time, I stayed away from the game because it felt old. Overall, I do think the translation does a fairly decent job of conveying the time period and feeling of the world you inhabit, but later games in the series would have definite improvements in this department. Lastly, I'm going to talk about ease of access. Dragon Quest I, or Dragon Warrior 1 as it was known on the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Game Boy, is available on a wide variety of platforms. The aforementioned Nintendo Entertainment System and Game Boy, there was a Japanese Super Famicom version that was bundled with Dragon Quest II. It's also been released on the Nintendo Wii, the PlayStation 4 in Japan, and, as I'm talking about it in this video, the Nintendo Switch, as well as computers of the time when it was released. Needless to say, it has been made widely available. Without a doubt, the easiest way to play this outside of Japan is either buying it off the Nintendo Switch eShop, or you can import the cartridge that has Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 on it. However, this will be more expensive. It effectively boils down to whether you want a physical box to add to your shelf or not. All in all, I do still highly recommend the Nintendo Switch version of Dragon Quest to anyone interested in this series or JRPGs in general, as this lays the groundwork for everything we love playing now. Thank you for listening to my video, and don't forget to let your nerd show. I'll talk to you all soon.